What do you do when your own son calls you shaking and says his wife went into the one place you never allow anyone to enter? How can a simple basement door turn into a test of respect, money, and family loyalty? I was ready for it, so I moved fast, the legal way. My name is Rob Kessler. I am 58. I own a small service company that works with buildings and equipment. I am not loud. I do not enjoy long talks in circles. I like clear rules and clear timing. People often think that means I will bend because I do not raise my voice. They learn later that calm does not mean soft. I live alone in the house where my son grew up. It is not a fancy place, but it is solid. I fix many parts of it with my own hands. I know every sound it makes at night. I know which step creaks and which window sticks in winter. The basement is part of that house. It is also the only part that has always been off limits. That rule started years ago. At first it was simple. When my son was little, I did not want him near tools, storage, and old items that could fall. Later, the reason changed, but the rule stayed. The basement became my workspace, my storage, and my private place. It held records and items tied to my business and my family history. I did not talk about it much. I did not need to. It was my home. When Aaron married Vanessa, I noticed something shift. It was not one big moment. It was small, like a slow change in tone. Aaron started asking questions with a new kind of pressure. Vanessa asked the same questions, but with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She spoke like she was already planning where things should go. Vanessa is 30. She is smart and organized. She keeps her hair perfect, even on a simple visit. She has a way of looking around a room like it is a list. I do not mean she is evil. I mean she sees value in everything. A chair is not a chair. It is a brand, a price, and an image. A family is not a family. It is status, comfort, and future security. The first time she came to my home as my son's wife, she walked through the living room slowly, like she was taking notes. She said my place had good bones and that a few changes could make it worth more. I did not argue. I only said I liked it the way it was. She laughed lightly and said I was simple. Aaron smiled like it was a harmless joke. I noticed it. I put it on a shelf in my mind. A few weeks after the wedding, I installed a new code lock on the basement door. I did it quietly. I did not announce it. I did not do it to tease anyone. I did it because I could see where the questions were going. Vanessa had asked about keys twice. Aaron had asked once, late at night, in a casual tone that did not feel casual at all. I told him no. I told him the basement stayed my space. He said he understood. His voice sounded tight. The day this started, they came over on a Sunday afternoon. The air was cold and bright. The street was quiet. I had soup heating on the stove. I had bread on the counter. I kept the visit simple on purpose. I learned a long time ago that fancy meals can turn into a stage. Simple food keeps people grounded. They arrived a few minutes early. Vanessa stepped inside first. She took her shoes off neatly, then looked around my entryway. Aaron followed, holding a small bag. He looked tired, like he had not slept well. He hugged me, and his arms felt tense. We sat at my kitchen table. The table is old, scratched, and honest. I like it. Vanessa looked at it and said it would look better with a table runner. I said the scratches told stories, and I liked the stories. She smiled and said she liked stories too, but she liked clean surfaces more. I poured soup into bowls. I asked about their work. Aaron answered in short lines. Vanessa answered in longer lines. She spoke about plans, goals, and getting ahead. She talked about people she followed online, people who bought homes young, people who built wealth fast. She looked at me when she said those words, like she was checking if I felt behind. I listened and nodded. I kept my tone calm. I did not challenge her views. I have met many people who talk that way. They do not want a conversation, they want agreement. After a while, Vanessa asked about the house. She said she had been thinking about family property and long-term planning. She said it was important for couples to feel secure. She said it was strange that I lived alone in a house with extra space. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I told her the house fit my life. I told her it was close to my work and my neighbors. I told her I liked my routine. She said routines were good, but plans were better. She said Aaron and she were building a real future. Aaron shifted in his chair. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his bowl. Then she brought up the basement. She said she noticed the door was different. She said the new lock looked modern. She asked why I needed a code lock inside my own home. Her voice was light, but her eyes stayed fixed on me. I told her it was for safety and privacy. I told her I did not want anyone going down there without me. I said it was a simple rule, like not going into someone's desk drawer. She tilted her head and said, "Family should not need privacy from family." She said secrets can hurt trust. She said she did not like the idea of closed doors inside a family home. I let a short silence sit between us. I kept stirring my soup slowly. I said it was not a secret, it was a boundary. I said I had one part of the house that was mine alone, and that was normal. Aaron cleared his throat. He said he understood my boundary, but he also asked if he could have the code just in case. He said he wanted it for emergencies. He said it would make Vanessa feel better. I looked at my son and saw how carefully he chose his words. His shoulders were tight. His eyes did not stay on mine for long. In that moment, I did not see a man asking for a code. I saw a son caught between two directions. I told him no. I said it calmly. I did not lecture. I did not explain again. I just said no, and I meant it. Vanessa set her spoon down with a soft tap. She smiled and said I was being difficult. She said it was just a basement. She said I was making it into a power game. I told her it was my home and my rule. I said I was not playing games. I said I was keeping things simple. She leaned back and looked around the kitchen as if the walls could vote. Then she raised her voice slightly, not shouting, just a little louder than before. She said she did not understand why I was acting like this. She said she would never lock a door in front of family. She said Aaron and she would never treat their children that way. That line landed in the room like a small weight. It was not just about a door anymore. It was about how I was being framed. The story she wanted was clear. I was the stubborn older man. She was the reasonable young wife. Aaron was the bridge who suffered in the middle. I stood up and took the bowls to the sink. I needed movement to keep my calm. I ran water, slow and steady. I asked if they wanted tea. Vanessa said yes, and she said it as if she had won something. While the kettle warmed, she walked toward the hallway. She did it casually, like she was stretching her legs. Aaron stayed at the table. His face was tight. I followed Vanessa at a normal pace. I did not rush. I did not block her like a guard. I simply moved in the same direction and stopped when she stopped. She stood near the basement stair landing. The door was there, plain and closed. The code lock sat on it, quiet and firm. Vanessa ran her fingers along the edge of the door, like she was testing the shape. She said it looked expensive. She said I must have spent a lot on it. I told her it was not about cost. I told her it was about control of access. I kept my words simple on purpose. She glanced back toward the kitchen and said Aaron should really know the code. She said it was his childhood home. She said it was unfair. She said she did not like unfair things. I told her Aaron knew my rule, and that was enough. I said I was happy to talk about anything else, but the basement was not open for discussion. Vanessa's smile tightened. She stepped closer to the lock. She lifted her hand as if she might press buttons, then paused. She looked at me and said she was only trying to help. She said she was thinking ahead. She said older people sometimes held on to things because they felt insecure. I felt my jaw tighten for a second, then I let it go. I did not take the bait. I did not match her tone. I told her I was not insecure. I told her I was clear. I said clarity was a gift, not a threat. Aaron appeared behind us then, walking softly. He said we should go back to the table. He said this was getting tense. He looked at Vanessa, then at me. His eyes asked me to give in, just a little, to make the moment stop. I did not give in. I only nodded and walked back toward the kitchen. I poured tea into 3 cups. My hands did not shake. I watched Aaron closely. His hands did shake a little when he picked up his cup. Vanessa talked again about family openness. She talked about how her friends' families shared everything. She said my way was old-fashioned. She said Aaron and she wanted to be part of a modern family. I listened. I answered with short lines. I said families can share love without sharing every code. I said respect mattered more than access. I said rules can protect relationships, not harm them. Vanessa smiled and said she hoped I would learn that. She said she did not want tension to become a long-term problem. She said she did not like conflict, but she did not back down from what was right. I noticed something then. She was not trying to understand me. She was trying to position herself above me. She wanted the role of the reasonable adult in the room. Even though she was sitting at my table, she wanted Aaron to see her as the leader and me as the obstacle. The visit ended soon after. Vanessa said they needed to leave for another plan. She hugged me quickly and lightly. Aaron hugged me longer, but he held on like he needed support. He told me he would call later. His voice sounded thin. When the door closed behind them, the house felt quieter than before. I stood in my kitchen and listened to the kettle cooling. I did not feel angry. I felt alert. I walked to the hallway and looked at the basement door. The lock light was off. The door was still. Nothing had happened yet. But I knew the pattern. Vanessa did not like closed doors. She did not like being told no. People like that do not stop after one visit. They simply change tactics. I went back to the kitchen and wiped the table slowly. I put the cups in the sink. I checked the front door and the back door like I always do. Then I sat down in my home office and opened my calendar. I looked at my next business trip. I had to leave in 2 days. The timing felt wrong, but work is work. My phone buzzed on the desk. The screen lit up with a new message notification. It was from the family group chat. I did not even know Vanessa had started one with my number in it. The preview line showed my name and the word basement, like the door had become a public topic. I did not open it right away. I stared at the screen for a moment. Calm on the outside, cold inside. Then I picked up the phone and read what she had written. The message in the group chat was written like a public announcement. Vanessa said she felt uneasy in my home because there was a locked door she was not allowed to open. She said transparency mattered in a family. She said she did not want secrets around her marriage. Then she added a smiling emoji, like that made it kind. I read it twice. I could feel what she was doing. She was not trying to ask me privately. She was building a crowd. She was turning my boundary into a character flaw. If enough people nodded along, the lock would look less like a rule and more like a problem that needed to be fixed. Lena replied first. She kept it short. She said my house was my house and my rules were my rules. Tanya did not reply at all. Aaron replied with one line that looked like damage control. He said everyone should calm down and talk later. Vanessa reacted with a heart symbol, like Aaron had supported her, even though he had not. I did not answer. I did not want to argue in a group chat. I have learned that these spaces do not create understanding. They create winners and losers. Vanessa wanted a win. She wanted my silence to look like guilt. So I did what I always do when someone tries to pull me into noise. I stepped back and watched the pattern. Vanessa did not start like this. When Aaron first introduced her, she was careful. She was friendly in a practiced way. She listened when my sister spoke. She asked me about my work. She complimented my cooking. If you met her once, you would think she was polite and serious about family. The shift happened after the wedding plans began. Aaron asked for my help with costs. He was not demanding, but he was stressed. I wanted my son to start his marriage without panic, so I helped. Vanessa thanked me, but her thanks felt like a business email. She was grateful, but also already thinking about the next step. During the planning, she began to ask questions that did not match a normal wedding. She asked who owned the house and whether the title was simple. She asked if I had any outstanding loans. She asked if I had a will. She said it was mature to talk about these things early. She said families who avoided money talks later faced problems. I did not tell her my personal plans. I did not argue. I said I had my affairs in order. She smiled and said that was good, but she also said order should not mean mystery. She said young families needed clarity. Aaron heard these talks and started to repeat them. He said he and Vanessa were trying to be responsible. He said they did not want surprises. He said it would be easier for everyone if things were open. That word, open, became a tool. It sounded kind. It also meant give us what we want. After they married, the visits to my home changed. Aaron used to come in, sit, and relax. He knew where the cups were. He knew the rhythm of the place. Now he came in and looked at Vanessa before he moved. He waited for her cues. He laughed when she made sharp jokes. He kept checking his phone like he was trying to manage 2 worlds at once. Vanessa acted like she was evaluating my home for a future that she expected to control. She offered to reorganize my cabinets. She offered to list old items online for me. She offered to bring in someone to modernize my lighting. Each offer came with a small comment about how I lived like an older man stuck in his ways. She did not call me names. She did not need to. The message was clear enough. One evening, they invited me to their apartment for dinner. Vanessa cooked and set the table like it was a magazine page. She kept the conversation polite until dessert. Then she brought up housing. She said their rent was too high for what they got. She said they needed to buy soon. She said the market rewarded people who moved fast. Aaron nodded along, looking hopeful and tired at the same time. Vanessa asked me how much I thought my house was worth now. She said it as if she was curious. Then she asked whether I had ever thought about downsizing. She said a smaller place would be easier for me. She said the extra space was wasted on one person. I told her I was not moving. I said I liked my neighborhood and my routine. I said I did not make big decisions to match other people's timelines. Vanessa smiled and said she understood, but her eyes stayed sharp. She said she just cared about the family as a whole. She said she did not want Aaron to struggle when there was unused space sitting right there. Aaron stared at his plate. He said nothing at first. Then he said he worried about the future. He said he and Vanessa were building something and needed support. He said he hoped I could help in some way. I asked what kind of help. He looked at Vanessa again. Vanessa said they were not asking for anything crazy. She said they just wanted options. That was a pattern with her. She avoided clear requests. She preferred soft pressure. She preferred to make the other person offer the solution, so she could accept it without looking demanding. When I did not offer, she shifted to another angle. She asked about the basement. She said Aaron told her I kept important things down there. She said she worried about safety and maintenance. She said if something happened to me, it would be hard for Aaron to handle the house without knowing what was stored there. She said it was not about control, it was about responsibility. I told her I managed my own property. I told her the basement was fine. I told her Aaron did not need to handle anything unless I asked him to. She said she understood. Then she said she hoped I knew that families share burdens. She said she did not want Aaron to be left out of important information. On the drive home that night, I kept my hand steady on the wheel and replayed the conversation. Vanessa was not asking about my well-being. She was building a case for access. She was planting the idea that my boundaries were risky and immature. She was preparing Aaron to see my home as a problem waiting to happen. After that, the pressure increased in small ways. Vanessa started sending Aaron to ask questions for her. Aaron would call and say Vanessa was worried about emergency access. He would say Vanessa wanted to make sure the smoke detectors were updated. He would say Vanessa thought it would be smart if he kept a key to everything in the house. I told him I understood the concern, but the answer was still no. I told him I could handle safety. I told him a locked door did not mean danger. It meant a private space. Aaron would go quiet. Then he would say he did not want conflict. He would say he wished things could be simpler. The truth was that things were simple. They were simple until someone decided that no was an invitation to negotiate. Vanessa treated no like the start of a process. She treated a boundary like a puzzle. I also started to notice how she spoke about me to other people. At a family birthday gathering at Lena's house, Vanessa made a comment about how some older men like to hoard control. She said it while smiling and passing a plate. People laughed politely. The moment passed, but I felt how the room shifted. She had turned me into a type of person in their minds. Not Rob, a man with a home and a rule. Just an older man who needed to loosen up. After that gathering, Lena pulled me aside in her kitchen. She did not dramatize it. She simply said Vanessa liked to test limits. She said Aaron looked worn down. She said I should keep my eyes open and keep my records straight. She did not explain what she meant by records. She did not have to. Lena has always understood how life works when people start circling assets. At work, I saw a related pattern. I run a company with contracts, equipment logs, and client schedules. My life is built on documentation. I do not do it because I am paranoid. I do it because clear records prevent chaos. Vanessa did not respect that. She called it rigid. She said it must be exhausting to live that way. She said I should relax and trust family. The day I installed the new code lock, I did not feel dramatic. I felt practical. I had watched Vanessa touch the basement doorknob twice during a visit, like she was checking if it was truly locked. I had seen Aaron glance at it too. They were thinking about it even when they pretended not to be. The new lock changed the game. A key can be copied. A code lock is different. A code lock makes it clear that access is permission, not possession. When Vanessa noticed it, she did not ask what brand it was because she cared about security. She asked because she wanted to measure how serious I was. After the group chat message, Vanessa kept going. She posted again later that night. She said she worried that something in the basement could affect the family. She said if the basement held business records, it was not just my issue. She said Aaron had a right to know what risks existed. That word, risks, was not an accident. It made her sound reasonable. It also made me sound irresponsible. I could see how someone unfamiliar with the situation might nod along. They would not think about the years I spent building a stable home for Aaron. They would think about the story Vanessa was telling now. Aaron sent me a private message after midnight. He said Vanessa was anxious. He said she felt shut out. He said he did not want problems between his wife and his father. He said he wished I could meet them halfway. I stared at that message for a long time. I did not feel anger. I felt a quiet disappointment. My son had learned to call pressure a compromise. He had learned to call my boundary a problem to solve. He had learned that peace meant I should give in first. I wrote back with one sentence. I said I loved him and I was not changing the basement rule. I said we could talk about anything else, but the answer on that door was still no. The next morning, Vanessa posted again in the group chat. She said she did not want anyone to feel attacked. She said she wanted unity. Then she suggested we schedule a meeting to talk about the house and family planning. She tagged a bank name and said it would be a good neutral place for a serious talk. She made it sound mature and responsible. I read that and understood the move. A bank conference room is not a living room. It is a stage. It makes her look organized. It makes me look like the stubborn man refusing a reasonable process. It gives her a setting where words like responsibility and planning sound official. I still did not answer in the group chat. I went to my home office and opened my calendar. I looked at my upcoming business trip and the date Vanessa suggested for the bank meeting. The timing was tight. Vanessa knew that. She was trying to push a decision while I was busy, tired, and distracted. I sat there in silence and listened to the house settle. I could hear the heater click. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. Everything in my home worked the way it was supposed to. The only thing out of order was the way my son's new life was trying to rewrite my boundaries. I did not decide anything out loud. I did not call anyone in a rush. I simply wrote the date down on a notepad and underlined it once. Then I opened a drawer and checked that my important items were where they should be. I closed the drawer and locked my office door, not because I feared the house, but because I had learned what entitlement looks like when it starts feeling bold. By the end of that day, Aaron called again. His voice was quiet. He said Vanessa was serious about the meeting. He said she wanted to settle things properly. He said he did not want it to turn into a bigger conflict. He said he hoped I would agree so everyone could move forward. I told him I heard him. I told him I would think about it. I kept my voice calm, because calm is the only language that works when someone is trying to pull you into emotion. When the call ended, I looked down the hallway toward the basement door. The code lock sat there like a simple truth. Vanessa wanted that door to open, not only for what was inside, but for what it would mean if she could make me obey. I understood then that this was no longer just about a basement. It was about who had authority in my life, and who was training my son to see me as an obstacle instead of a father. 2 days later, I left for my business trip. I did not like the timing, but I could not cancel. My company had a client who only had a short window for the work. If I missed it, I would lose the contract and the trust. I packed my bag the night before. I checked the house the way I always do. I locked my office. I checked the basement door twice without thinking. The code lock was steady. The small light blinked once when I tested it, then went dark again. On the morning I left, I woke up early. The street was still gray. I made coffee and stood at the kitchen window for a minute. I was not sad. I was not nervous. I was simply aware. When people start pushing, they often wait for the moment you are not there. They act when the room is empty and the witnesses are far away. Vanessa had already tried to turn my rule into a public issue. If she could not win with talk, she would try something else. Aaron called while I was putting my bag into the car. His voice sounded careful. He said Vanessa was still upset. He said she wanted to fix things before they got worse. He said she was saying the basement door made her feel like she was not truly part of the family. I listened and let him finish. Then I told him I had a trip and I would not debate the door by phone. I told him to focus on his own home and his own peace. He went quiet for a moment. Then he said he understood. His words were polite, but his tone was tired. At the airport, I sat in a lounge area with a coffee and my laptop. People walked past with rolling bags. The speakers announced boarding times in a calm voice. I answered work emails, reviewed a schedule, and tried to keep my mind on the job. Still, part of me stayed with the house. It was not fear. It was the way a person keeps awareness when they know a boundary is under pressure. I had set up simple notifications on the lock when I installed it. Nothing dramatic, just a basic alert if someone tried the wrong code too many times, or if the door was forced. I did not tell anyone about those alerts. I did not do it because I wanted to catch someone. I did it because I like systems that tell the truth without emotion. My phone stayed quiet for most of the morning. Then, as I was closing my laptop to head to my gate, it vibrated. The caller name was Aaron. I answered right away. Aaron's voice was not steady. He said he needed to tell me something, and he did not know how to say it. He said Vanessa went to my house while I was already on the way to the airport. He said she told him she wanted to clear the air and show she was not afraid of my rules. He said she made it sound like a bold step, like she was doing something important for their marriage. I did not interrupt him. I let him speak in full sentences. When he paused, I asked him to slow down and tell me the facts in order. I asked him who was in the house, what time it happened, and what the basement door looked like after. Aaron said Vanessa came with him. He said he thought they were going to talk to my neighbor Tanya about a package delivery issue from last week. He said Vanessa insisted they stop by my house first because it was on the way. He said he did not want to argue in the car, so he went along with it. He said they entered the house with a spare key I had given Aaron years ago for true emergencies. He said he had never used it before. He said Vanessa told him it was not wrong because family had keys. He said he felt uneasy the moment they stepped into my hallway. He said Vanessa walked straight to the basement door. He said she stood there and looked at the lock like it was an opponent. He said she asked him for the code again. He He said he told her he did not have it. He said she did not believe him. I asked if she tried to enter codes. He said yes. He said she tried different combinations. He said she used dates that mattered to them. He said she used numbers she thought I might pick. He said she spoke the numbers out loud like she was solving a puzzle. He said he asked her to stop. He said she told him he was letting me control him. I asked if she called anyone. He paused. Then he said she called a local service number she found online. He said she told the person on the phone that the lock was acting up and she needed help opening the door. He said he told her that was not true. He said she waved him off and kept talking like she was managing a small home problem. When I heard that, something inside me became very quiet. It was not anger, it was clarity. There is a difference between pushing in conversation and bringing outsiders into a private space without permission. In my mind, that was a line. I asked Aaron if the person arrived. He said yes. He said the person came to the house and looked at the lock. He said Vanessa spoke with confidence and acted like she owned the decision. He said he stood there in the hallway feeling small and confused. I asked what happened next. Aaron said the person asked for proof that Vanessa had authority to request the work. He said the person wanted to see identification that matched the address, or a written request from the owner. He said Vanessa became annoyed. He said she argued that she was family. He said the person stayed calm and repeated the policy. He said the person refused to touch the lock and left. When Aaron said that, I felt two things at once. First, relief that the service person acted professionally. Second, disappointment that my son let it go that far. I did not say those feelings out loud. I kept my voice flat and asked if the basement door was damaged. Aaron said the door looked fine. He said the lock beeped and flashed red a few times. He said Vanessa slammed her hand against the door once, then stepped back like she was trying to look composed. I asked if anyone else saw it. He said Tanya saw the service van outside. He said Tanya asked what was going on, and Vanessa told her they were dealing with a family access issue. He said Tanya looked uncomfortable. He said Aaron wished he could disappear. I heard my boarding call in the background, but I did not rush the conversation. I told Aaron to leave my house right away. I told him to lock the door behind him and return the key to a safe place in his own home. I told him to keep his voice calm and not argue with Vanessa in my house. I told him to tell Vanessa that I would speak to her later, but not in my hallway and not with outsiders nearby. Aaron said Vanessa was in the car with him now. He said she was upset. He said she kept saying she was only trying to protect their future. He said she was claiming I must be hiding something illegal down there. He said she said that loud enough for Tanya to hear through the open window. I told Aaron not to answer that claim. I told him that arguing with a claim like that only gives it oxygen. I told him to focus on one simple line, that it was not their home and not their decision. He said he would try. Before I ended the call, I asked one more question. I asked if Vanessa had touched anything else in the house. Aaron said she walked into my home office doorway and looked around, but he stopped her from entering. He said she called him weak for stopping her. He said he felt like he was failing everyone at once. I told him he was not failing everyone. I told him he was learning where his real lines were. I told him I needed him to understand something important. I said his spare key was for real emergencies, not for proving a point. He said he knew. His voice sounded smaller when he said it. After I hung up, I walked to the gate and boarded the plane. I sat by the window. I kept my face neutral. Anyone watching me would have seen a tired man going to work. Inside, my thoughts were moving in a clean order. I replayed the facts. Vanessa entered my home without permission while I was out of town. She tried codes on a lock I installed to prevent exactly that. She called an outsider to attempt access. Then she planted a story, loud enough for a neighbor to hear, that I was hiding something wrong. That was not a misunderstanding. That was a strategy. When we landed, I went straight to my hotel. I checked in, rode the elevator, and entered my room. The room was simple, clean, and quiet. I set my bag down and stood still for a moment. I did not pace. I did not punch a wall. I simply breathed and let my mind settle. Then I opened my laptop and created a new note with a date and time. I typed only the facts I had. Aaron's call, Vanessa's actions, the service person, Tanya as a witness. I did not add opinions. I did not add insults. I kept it clean. Facts are stronger than feelings when you need to protect yourself. I checked my phone and saw a missed message from Tanya. Her text was short. She asked if everything was okay because she saw a service van at my place and Vanessa looked upset. I replied with one line. I told her I was out of town and I appreciated her telling me. I asked if she could remember the time and any details, just in case I needed them later. She replied that she could. After that, I made one quiet phone call to a person saved in my contacts under a first name only. I did not explain the whole story. I only said I needed a proper talk when I returned. The person asked if it was urgent. I said yes, but I was calm. The person said we would handle it correctly. That was the moment the switch fully flipped. Not into anger, but into structure. Vanessa wanted control. She wanted access. She wanted to make my home feel like a shared asset she could manage. She wanted to train my son to see my boundaries as outdated and wrong. If I argued with her, she would call it conflict. If I stayed silent, she would call it guilt. Either way, she would keep pushing. So I chose a different path. I chose the path that does not depend on opinions. I chose the path that depends on systems, rules, and consequences that do not change based on who speaks louder. That night, after my work calls were done, I sat at the small desk in my hotel room. I opened my calendar and looked again at the bank meeting date Vanessa had suggested. I looked at my trip schedule. I looked at the travel times. Then I underlined one date on my notepad once with a steady hand. I went to bed at a normal hour. I turned off the light and listened to the quiet hotel air. My mind was not racing, it was focused. Vanessa had shown me who she was when she thought I was far away. Aaron had shown me how much pressure he was under, and I had shown myself something too. I was done negotiating my boundaries inside my own home. I was going to handle this the right way, through the systems people like Vanessa claimed to respect. I came home 2 days later. I parked in my driveway and sat for a moment before I got out. The house looked normal from the outside. Lights off. Curtains still. No sign of trouble. That is the thing about boundary problems. Most of the time the damage is not visible. It sits in the air between people. I walked in and did my usual checks without thinking. Front door, back door, windows, thermostat. Then I went straight to the hallway and stood in front of the basement door. The lock was still in place. No scratches, no loose parts. I tested it once just to make sure it responded the way it should. It did. I did not feel relief. I felt confirmation. The lock did its job, and the bigger issue was not metal or code. The bigger issue was that Vanessa decided my home rules did not apply to her. I called Tanya next. I did not want gossip. I wanted a clean account of what she saw. Tanya answered right away. She sounded careful, like she did not want to step into family trouble. I told her I understood. I asked her to tell me the time she saw the service van, where it was parked, and whether anyone spoke to her directly. She said she saw Vanessa near the front walk and heard her say something about a family access issue. She said Aaron looked tense and kept glancing toward the street. Tanya said she did not want to get involved, but the scene looked wrong. I thanked her and told her that was enough. After that call, I sat in my home office and opened the group chat messages again. Vanessa had added more people since I left. A cousin I barely talked to, an uncle who likes to play peacekeeper, a friend of hers that I did not recognize. Vanessa wrote long messages about unity, openness, and planning. She used polite words, but her meaning was sharp. She said my behavior was concerning. She said it was not healthy to lock away parts of a home. She said Aaron and she needed clarity before they could move forward as a family. I did not answer in that chat. I saved the messages. I took screenshots and backed them up in a folder on my laptop. I did not do it with excitement. I did it the same way I back up client emails. When people use words as pressure, the best response is to preserve the words exactly as they were. Later that afternoon, I drove to the security company that sold and installed the code lock. I did not walk in like an angry customer. I walked in like a man asking how a system works. The manager at the desk recognized my name from the order. I told him I needed information about any attempted entries during a certain window. He asked if the lock was damaged. I said it was not. I said I only wanted to know what the system recorded and how I could request it properly. He explained the basic policy in plain language. He said they could provide certain logs to the owner if requested through their standard process. He said if there was any dispute, the cleanest path was to keep everything formal and documented. I told him that was exactly what I wanted. I asked what details I should include to make the request clear. He gave me a short list: date, time window, device number, and my proof of ownership. I thanked him and left without making it a bigger moment than it needed to be. On the way out, I noticed a small sign near the counter about service work. It said, "Technicians do not bypass locks without proof of authority." That matched what Aaron told me. It mattered to me because it showed the service person did not act carelessly. It also showed Vanessa tried to use a common tactic: speak with confidence and hope the system bends. That day, it did not bend. From there, I went to the hardware store. Not because I wanted to build a wall around my life, but because I wanted to remove weak points. A spare key can be a kindness until someone treats it like a right. I bought a small lockbox for my own use and a few simple items to tighten up how I stored keys and documents. Nothing dramatic, just practical adjustments that made the house harder to treat like shared space. That evening, Aaron came by alone. He texted first and asked if we could talk. I told him yes. When he walked in, he looked like he had not slept well. He did not sit down right away. He He stood in my kitchen and rubbed his hands together like he was cold. He told me Vanessa was furious that the service person refused to open the basement door. He said she felt embarrassed. He said she kept repeating that I must be hiding something. He said she told him that if he did not stand with her, then he was choosing me over his marriage. He said he did not know how to answer without starting another argument. I listened. Then I asked him a simple question. I asked if he believed I was hiding something wrong in my basement. He looked down and said no. He said he did not think that. He said he was just tired of being in the middle. I told him I understood being tired. Then I told him something he needed to hear. I said he was not in the middle by accident. I said Vanessa put him there because it helps her. When a person pulls a spouse into a fight with family, it creates pressure. Pressure makes people give in just to stop the noise. So I told him I would not give in, and I needed him to stop trying to make me do it. Aaron swallowed and nodded. I asked him about the spare key. He hesitated. Then he reached into his pocket and placed it on the table. He said he did not want it anymore. He said he never wanted to use it like that. He said he felt ashamed that he even brought it. I did not shame him further. I told him he made a better choice by bringing it back. I put the key away without ceremony. Then I told him that if there was a real emergency, I would handle it, and he could call me. I said a real emergency does not include someone feeling curious or someone wanting to prove a point. Aaron nodded again, and his shoulders lowered a little. Before he left, he asked if I would go to the bank meeting Vanessa wanted. He said she claimed it would clear the air. He said she wanted other people there so she could show she was reasonable. He said she wanted me to be fair. I told him I would handle things properly. I did not explain how. I did not threaten anyone. I did not use big words. I only said I would not debate my boundaries in a group chat, and I would not be pushed by public pressure. I told him that if there was going to be any serious conversation, it would be calm and structured. Aaron looked relieved by that, even if he did not fully understand it. After Aaron left, Vanessa sent me a private message for the first time in weeks. It was long. She wrote like she was writing a statement, not a note. She said she was concerned about the basement. She said secrecy damaged trust. She said she did not want to accuse me, but she wanted proof that nothing in the basement could affect the family. She said if I loved Aaron, I would not make his life harder. I read it once, then I saved it. I did not reply. The next day, I drove to my worksite office and handled business like normal. I met with a client, I reviewed a schedule, I answered calls. I kept my life steady because a steady life makes panic look smaller. While I worked, I also made 2 quiet calls during breaks, one to confirm an appointment with someone I trusted for advice, one to ask the security company what the next steps were for a formal request. No drama, no speeches, just logistics. Vanessa kept posting in the group chat. She started using softer language again. She wrote about family healing. She wrote about how she respected elders. Then she added lines about how elders also needed to respect the new family unit. She suggested we all meet at a bank, because a bank understands responsibility. She said she wanted to talk about planning and future security. She made it sound like she was trying to protect Aaron, not pressure me. I noticed who reacted to her messages. A few people gave polite support, not because they knew the facts, but because they dislike tension. They want the quiet man to give in so the room feels peaceful again. Lena did not play that game. She messaged me privately and said Vanessa was building an audience. She told me to stay calm and stay factual. She said if I needed someone to sit in a room and say nothing but observe, she could do that. I told her I appreciated it. I did not tell her my steps. I did not need to. Lena knows that when I go quiet, I am not collapsing. I am organizing. That weekend, I met Tanya outside while she was getting her mail. She asked if everything was okay. I told her I was handling it. I asked her again if she remembered the time and anything she heard. She repeated what she told me before. She also said one more thing. She said Vanessa's tone was not worried. It was confident, like she expected the door to open if she pushed the right way. I thanked Tanya and told her she did not need to talk about it to anyone else. She nodded, and I could see she was relieved to be given a clear instruction. By the end of that week, the house felt calm again, not because the problem was gone, but because I had removed the weak points. The spare key was no longer floating in Aaron's pocket. My communications were saved, my timeline was clean, my requests were being made through the right channels. Vanessa still believed she could win with pressure and public talk. She still believed I would give in to keep the peace. I did not correct her belief. Sometimes it is useful when people underestimate you. It makes them careless. It makes them speak too freely. It makes them show their true intentions without realizing they are doing it. When the bank meeting date got closer, Vanessa sent a final message to the group. She said she hoped I would show up and act like a real father. She said she wanted everyone to witness a mature resolution. She added a line about how she did not want anyone to feel embarrassed. She wrote it like a gift. I read it and understood it as a warning. I closed the chat and placed my phone face down on the desk. I looked around my home office. The room was quiet. The folders were labeled. The calendar date was still underlined once. My hands were steady. My voice, when I spoke to anyone, stayed calm. Vanessa wanted control. I wanted order. And order does not argue. Order simply arrives. On time, in the right room, with the right steps already in motion. The week of the meeting moved in a quiet rhythm. On the outside, my life looked normal. I went to job sites, answered calls, and made sure my crew had what they needed. I paid invoices on time. I ate simple dinners. I slept in my own bed. If someone asked how I was doing, I would have said I was fine. Inside, I was doing something different. I was tightening the lines of my life so they could not be pulled by noise. I met with Gwen Park on a Wednesday morning. Her office was not large, but it was clean and calm. She did not waste words. She asked for the timeline, the names, and what I wanted the outcome to be. I told her the outcome was simple. I wanted my property rules respected. I wanted false stories to stop. I wanted my son to understand that pressure was not the same as responsibility. Gwen listened without reacting. She did not look surprised. She told me that people often confuse family access with family rights. She told me that I needed to keep everything clear and documented. She told me to avoid public arguments and to let systems do the work. I told her that was my plan already. She asked if I had responded to the group chat. I said no. She nodded once and said that was good. She said if I wrote in anger, it would be used against me. She said if I wrote calmly, it would still be twisted. She said my silence, paired with proper steps, would speak louder than 1,000 lines of debate. When she slid papers across her desk for me to review, I kept my face neutral. I did not ask dramatic questions. I read what I needed to read. I signed what needed to be signed. I did not feel excitement. I felt relief, the same kind of relief a person feels when a loose shelf finally gets mounted properly. Things stop wobbling when they are anchored. After that meeting, I walked to my car and sat for a moment with my hands on the steering wheel. My phone had 3 missed notifications from the group chat. I did not open them. I drove straight to the bank and asked to confirm the room reservation Vanessa had arranged. The bank staff treated it like any other appointment. They did not care about my family dynamics. They cared about schedules, identification, and procedure. That was exactly why Vanessa picked the place. She wanted the setting to make her look mature. She did not realize that the setting would also remove her favorite tool, which was emotional control. I did not speak with the manager for long. I only confirmed the date, the time, and the rules for using the conference room. I asked whether the meeting could be recorded by the bank. The staff member said it depended on consent and policy. I said I understood. I asked what the cleanest option was if I wanted everything to remain professional. The staff member said the cleanest option was to keep the meeting focused and not disruptive. That word, disruptive, stayed in my mind as I walked back out. Vanessa wanted disruption, even if she pretended she did not. She wanted a scene where she could look calm and I could look unreasonable. She wanted me to snap, even just a little, so she could point at it and say it proved her concerns. I was not going to give her that. On Thursday, the security company sent me confirmation that my formal request was in process. They did not send me anything dramatic. They did not share details in casual language. They handled it like a normal request from a customer. That also mattered. It meant the truth was sitting in a place Vanessa could not influence with a smile. That same day, Aaron called during my lunch break. His voice sounded tight. He said Vanessa was preparing for the meeting like it was a big event. He said she had told her friends and some extended family that she was finally going to set boundaries with me. He said she had been practicing what she would say. He said he felt trapped in his own apartment. I asked him what he wanted. I did not mean it harshly. I meant it plainly. Aaron paused and said he wanted peace. He said he wanted Vanessa to stop talking about my house like it was a prize. He said he wanted me to stop being the target in every argument they had. I told him peace is not created by giving in to pressure. I told him pressure does not end when it wins. It grows. I told him the only thing that truly ends pressure is a clear consequence and a firm boundary. He sighed and said he understood, but he sounded like he did not yet know how to live that truth. He asked again if I would attend the bank meeting. I told him yes. I told him I would handle things properly. I told him he did not need to fight anyone for me. I told him he only needed to be honest if anyone asked him direct questions. I told him he should not repeat stories that were not true just to keep the room quiet. He said he would try. After that call, I texted Lena and asked if she could attend as an observer. I did not ask her to argue. I asked her to sit, listen, and remember. Lena replied that she would be there and she would keep her face neutral. She also said Vanessa would not like it. I replied that Vanessa did not need to like it. Friday evening, Vanessa sent another group message. She wrote that she was grateful everyone cared about the family. She wrote that she wanted the meeting to be respectful. Then she added a line that the basement issue was only one part of a bigger problem. She wrote that the bigger problem was that I did not treat Aaron like an adult partner in the family. She wrote that I was still trying to control him. That message was not aimed at me. It was aimed at the room she was trying to build. She was recruiting witnesses for her version of the story. In her version, she was defending her husband and their future. In her version, I was the obstacle. In her version, any boundary I set could be described as control. I did not reply. I saved it like the others. On Saturday morning, I cleaned my kitchen and my hallway like I always do. It was not because I expected guests. It was because routine calms the mind. I made coffee and ate toast. I walked through the house and checked that everything was where it belonged. Then I went into my home office and opened the folder I had been building. I did not look at it like a trophy. I looked at it like a tool. I checked that my timeline notes were clear. I checked that my contacts were correct. I checked that the copies of messages were saved in more than one place. I checked that the key from Aaron was secured. I also picked up a small envelope I had prepared earlier in the week. It was sealed and labeled in plain handwriting. I set it back down in the folder and closed it. I did not need to open it yet. I only needed to know it was there. Around noon, Tanya knocked on my door. She stood on the porch with a careful expression. She said she did not want to be involved, but she wanted to make sure things were okay. I told her I appreciated her concern. I told her she did not need to take sides. I told her I only needed one thing from her, which was to remember what she saw and not to repeat rumors. Tanya nodded quickly. She looked relieved that I was not asking her to become part of a fight. After she left, I sat down at my kitchen table and stared at the wood grain for a long time. The scratches were still there. The table was still honest. It reminded me that my life did not need to become theater just because Vanessa enjoyed an audience. That afternoon, Aaron sent me a message. He said Vanessa was nervous. He said she was saying she would not back down. He said she believed she was doing the right thing. He asked me, in a quiet way, to not embarrass her. I read that message twice. I understood what he meant. He wanted me to soften, to keep the room calm, to let Vanessa feel like she won something so the tension would stop at home. That is what people do when they are tired. They trade truth for quiet. I wrote back one line. I told him I would not insult anyone. I told him I would not shout. I told him I would be calm and proper. I also told him I would not let anyone rewrite my boundaries with public pressure. I did not add more. Long messages invite debate. Short messages stand firm. On Sunday, the day of the meeting, I woke up early. The sky was pale and cold. I shaved, dressed neatly, and ate a simple breakfast. I did not wear anything flashy. I wore what I wear when I meet a client. Clean shoes, plain jacket. Nothing that says I am here to fight. Everything that says I am here to handle business. Before I left, I walked once more to the basement door. I did not touch the lock. I did not need to. I only stood there and let myself remember why it mattered. It was not because I loved secrets. It was because a man needs at least one space where his no is respected. I went back to my office, picked up my folder, and placed it in a plain bag. I looked at my calendar on the wall. The date was underlined once. I turned off the desk lamp, locked the office, and walked out of the house without rushing. In the car, my phone buzzed twice. The first was the group chat, a last-minute message from Vanessa telling everyone to arrive early and keep the tone respectful. The second was a private message from Aaron saying he was already there and Vanessa was talking to people in the lobby. He said she was smiling, but her hands were shaking. I did not reply while driving. I kept my eyes on the road and my speed steady. The bank was only 15 minutes away, but the drive felt longer because my mind was very quiet. There were no wild thoughts, no speeches, only the sense of stepping toward a line that would not be moved again. When I pulled into the bank parking lot, I saw several cars I recognized. I saw Lena's car. I saw Aaron's car. I also saw a car I did not recognize that I guessed belonged to one of Vanessa's friends. I sat for a moment with my hands resting on the steering wheel. I checked my breathing. I checked my posture. I reminded myself of my promise to Aaron. Calm, proper, no insults, no raised voice. The truth does not need volume. Then I got out, picked up my bag, and walked toward the front doors. Through the glass, I could already see a small group gathered near the conference hallway. Vanessa was in the center of it, speaking with her hands and smiling like she was hosting something important. Aaron stood slightly behind her, shoulders tight, eyes moving like he was looking for an exit. I kept walking at the same pace. I did not hesitate. I did not speed up. I entered the bank like I belonged there, because I did. When I walked into the bank, Vanessa's smile widened like she was greeting an audience. Aaron stood behind her, eyes low. Lena was already there, sitting near the wall with her hands folded. A bank staff member led us into a conference room with a long table, water cups, and a small speakerphone in the middle. Vanessa started talking before anyone sat down. She said she wanted a respectful family plan. She said she was tired of hidden doors and unanswered questions. She said the basement was a symbol of a bigger issue, that I did not treat Aaron like a full adult in the family. I waited until everyone was seated. Then I placed my plain bag on the table and looked at the bank manager. I asked him to keep the meeting procedural and to note that I was there to resolve access and property rules, not to argue about feelings. Vanessa said she agreed. She said she wanted clarity. She kept using that word like it was a key. I told her I also wanted clarity. Then I opened my folder. First, I slid one page forward that showed the group chat messages and the private messages she sent me. I did not read them with emotion. I only pointed out the dates and the pattern. I said she chose public pressure instead of private respect. Vanessa tried to speak over me. The bank manager raised a hand and asked us to take turns. That small moment mattered. Vanessa lost control of the rhythm. Next, I placed a printed timeline on the table. It was one page, clean, with date and timelines. I explained in simple order that while I was out of town, Vanessa entered my home using a spare key that was meant for emergencies. I stated that she attempted multiple codes on the basement lock and then contacted an outside service to request help opening the door. Vanessa said she never lied. She said she was trying to protect her marriage and future. I nodded once and said intentions do not replace permission. Then I placed the security company logs on the table. I showed the device number, the date window, and the record of repeated wrong entries. I did not call it a trap. I called it a standard feature of a code system. The bank manager looked at the pages and asked one question about the timestamps. I answered it calmly. Aaron's face changed as he read the dates. He looked at Vanessa, then back at the paper. Vanessa said the logs did not prove anything about who pressed the buttons. She said it could have been a mistake. I agreed that logs do not show a face. Then I added the next part. I placed a written statement from the service company on the table. It confirmed a call was made to request a lock opening and that the technician refused because the caller could not show authority to approve the work. It included the time and the address. The room went very quiet. Lena did not move. Aaron's hands tightened around his water cup. Vanessa tried to smile again. She said I was making a big show. She said I wanted to embarrass her. I told her I did not come to embarrass anyone. I came to end a pattern. Then I nodded to Gwen Park. She had been sitting quietly with a neutral expression. She placed one final packet on the table and pushed it toward the bank manager first, then toward Aaron. I explained what it was in plain words. I said my home and related assets were held under a written plan that I updated through proper channels. I said that plan included clear conditions about access, conduct, and who could benefit from my support. I said I had updated it after the basement incident because the incident showed me that my boundaries were not being respected. Vanessa's expression tightened. She asked what I changed. I told her the change was simple. I said no person who enters my home without permission or tries to bring outside help to bypass my rules will be included in any benefit connected to my home or my business support. I said that included any future assistance I might have offered for Aaron and Vanessa's housing plans. I said it also included any role in managing my property. Aaron whispered my name like he was trying to slow time down. I looked at him and said I loved him. But love does not mean surrender. I told him he still had a relationship with me, but he would have to choose honesty over pressure. I told him that if he wanted support in the future, it would be based on respect, not demands, and it would be written clearly. Vanessa tried to argue again. The bank manager asked Gwen to confirm that the packet was executed properly. Gwen answered in a calm voice and said it was completed through the correct steps. The bank manager then slid one printed confirmation page across the table. It was a formal acknowledgement of the updated instructions on file. Vanessa reached for it, stopped halfway, and stared at the paper as if it had changed the air in the room. Aaron did not touch anything. Lena stayed still, watching. I closed my folder, stood up, and said the meeting was done. No one followed me as I walked out. The only sound behind me was the soft scrape of Vanessa's chair as she shifted, still staring at the confirmation like it was the first time she understood that a locked door can also be a locked decision.